Welcome to the Q1 Buck Poll. I'm Tim Hart with Mike Big Buck Hoffner. Well, it's not Super Bowl Sunday, but it is Q1 Buck Poll Sunday. And Mike, we have some great stories this week from our Battle Creek party.
I'm always looking forward to the stories, but I'll tell you what, Tim, we've had a lot of snowfall in the last couple of weeks, and man, the deer have been everywhere. I've been out driving the roads, they're out moving.
Well, you know, it's a good time to also take a look at where their tracks are. Eventually, coming up, they're going to lose their antlers, and you'll be able to find some sheds. But right now is the time to pattern their deer, and Tony LaPratt and I have talked about it many a time. You know, when you're getting ready for next fall, start now.
Yeah, well, it's the easiest. You can't do it any better without having that snow on the ground. That's the easiest you can do it with.
We got big bucks this week on the Q1 Buck Poll. We're also going to be going to the Soaring Eagle Casino with Chef Betty Garrett. And today we're making venison root vegetable pasty. And it's part 2 because this recipe, it took a little time.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, for as long as it's taken, we can't wait to eat it.
We also have more stories, of course, from Battle Creek. We're going to have those all throughout the show today. So lots happening. We're going to talk about prizes. We're going to talk about the prize parties coming up too. All that and, again, bucks from Big Buck after this here on the Q1 Buck Poll.
The Q1 Buck Poll is sponsored by these participating businesses who support the great outdoors in Michigan.
Back here on the Q1 Buck Poll, well, we've got our regional prize parties going on right now. You can go online to q1buckpoll.com, click on the prize parties at the top of the page, and then there's a listing of where we're going to be. And you know, Mike, it is always fun to talk to a lot of the hunters out there because there's a lot of unique stories. Some stories it seems like you could go to Jackson or Battle Creek or Coldwater and kind of the same thing happened with the deer, but with others, very unique and a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know, like I've said before, some of these people are like fishermen. Man, they can tell some great stories when it comes to hunting, that the big ones got away, or I bagged the big one. It took me 15 shots to bring it down. We've heard them all. And speaking of bucks, let's start rolling out with Jason Maurer from Frankenmuth, bringing in an 8-pointer. His score was 43. Michael Kosher Jr. from Lawrence with a 9-pointer. The score 42 3/4. Chase Childers from Lake Ann with an 8-pointer. His score 42 1/4. And Hunter Dennis from Chesney with a 10-pointer. The score was 42.
Well, on today's show, we would like to thank Miller's Time Out, which is right in Battle Creek, just off I-94 on Helmer Road. They hosted our party, and great hosts. We had great appetizers there, excellent atmosphere. And, Mike, we have some great stories today.
And had a lot of fun.
All right, so Anthony actually has 2 deer in the contest. One that finished 7th. One is a 12-pointer. 16-inch spread, 12 3/4-inch mass, 8-inch longest tine, total score 48 3/4. He shot that with a bow from Ceresco. And then his first place buck was an 11-pointer, 19.5-inch spread, 12.5 inches of mass, 11-inch longest tine, total score 54 with a muzzle loader. And Anthony, why don't you quickly tell me about the 12-pointer first?
Well, the owner of the land told me one day, I'd been hunting on the other side of the road, he said, well, go hunt the other side. Well, I said, I didn't know I had permission. He said, go hunt it.
That's a co-op. You know what I'm talking about?
So I went back there and found a tree stand, never put it up, got in it. I looked down, there were scrapes everywhere. Hour later, I looked across the field, and there he was. He was all stressed up. He hit 7 scrapes on the way to me. And he came in 35 yards, and I hard shot him. I watched him run across the field about 60 yards and stagger around for a minute and go down.
So at that point you're thinking, man, what a great hunting season.
Yes, I thought that was, you know, I've killed bigger bucks before, but that was a really nice buck.
All right, so then an 11-pointer. Let's hear about that one. This is the first place buck.
I'd seen the 11-pointer 3 times. I was turkey hunting once with my bow. Shot Eddie Turkey, kind of a long shot. I got down, went over to pick up my arrow, and I heard him grunt, and I looked over. He was 10 yards chasing the doe. I thought I was going to throw up, so I went home and
a little nervous stomach is what you had?
Yep. That was bow hunting. And then I went home and I hunted a few more times, tried to get my daughter to go out. Couldn't get her to go. She's too busy working all the time.
Where's she at? In the back here?
She's right here.
And she's got the camo on and everything, and you didn't go out? Oh, okay.
Anyway, finally, I'd seen him again with a gun, and he was in the corn. I knew he was hanging in the corn, so I kept hunting the corn, hunting over the corn. The day after Thanksgiving, I got up in the cornfield, or up in the tree stand over the corn, and a small buck come out. He didn't have any tines, he just had beams. He just knocked them all off. And so I was ready. I stood up, got around, got my gun ready, my muzzle loader, and about 5 minutes later, I heard a grunt. He come chasing the doe out of the corn, right under me, just on a little bit of an angle. And I grunted at him, stopped him dead in his tracks, and heart shot him. And he run into the corn, run into a washout, and he staggered around for a minute, and then he fell over. About 80 yards away, and that was it.
So did you see him drop or not?
Seen him drop. I thought I was dreaming. It happened so fast. It happened within, seconds, and I thought, am I dreaming? Or I had to look at him through the scope, make sure that he was there,
How was your stomach at that point in time?
About like it is now.
Time now for our sponsor spotlight. We're at Camel Creek Hydrographics in Brighton. Kevin Target is with us. Kevin.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, we're talking about dipped skulls and all kinds of materials to be dipped here at Camel Creek Hydrographics. Tell me about the process of dipping a skull.
Sure. What we do, Tim, is either a customer will bring us a skull that's already been cleaned and ready to go, or they can bring us one that we'll beetle clean it for them. So you can bring us a whole head, frozen or fresh. We'll take it and we'll skin it out. We'll put it through the beetling process. The beetles will go through, they eat all the flesh, cartilage, anything you can think of that's in there. They take care of everything for us. Once they're done with it, we put it through a sanitizing process. So we kill any bacteria, any foul odors, anything like that is eliminated. Then we paint it, put it through their dipping process, let them dry out for a day or two, then we clear coat them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if we take a look, there's all different types of patterns to take a look at. Here we've got kind of an orangish pattern. We've got the white looking pattern here. So you've got all different types of colors to choose from.
Oh, sure. We've got about probably about 20 patterns total. We've probably got a key 6 patterns that are probably our most popular that people like, but we can put it on anything. We've got other patterns besides those also, but like the gun stocks here, we can do the gun stocks, archery equipment, we can put it on just about anything. We can't do a complete firearm at this time due to a change in the law, but we just moved to a new location with proper zoning, so we're applying for our federal firearms license right now so we can hopefully start doing complete firearms again shortly.
All right, so if you need a bow dipped, you need a skull dipped, you need a mailbox dipped, whatever the case is,
Sure.
You guys can take care of them. And they can see a lot of your work online too, right?
Sure. You can check out our website, or you can check us out on our Facebook page. We've got a little bit more current stuff on there until we redo the website. And on the website also, we'll have all the new patterns on there, hopefully by the first of the year. We've got a new distributor we're working with, so a lot of the patterns you see here are some of them from the new distributor. So.
All right, check them out. Camel Creek Hydrographics in Brighton. Our sponsor spotlight today. Kevin, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, I'm Tim Hart, and you're watching the Q1 Buck Poll. Back here on the Q1 Buck Poll. Well, it's almost time to do some cooking. Before we do some cooking at the Soaring Eagle with Chef Betty Garrett, we got Big Buck Hoffner here, and as always, one of the best features of our show, big bucks from around the state.
Now, before we bring it to the kitchen, we got to have the big bucks. So let's start out with Dylan Peacock from Morley with an 8-pointer. The score was 42. Brad Whisker from Clio with an 8-pointer. His score was 40 3/4. And Derek Peace from Flushing, Michigan brings in a 9-point buck. The score 40 3/4.
There are many ways to make venison. In our show each week, we've been at the Soaring Eagle, we've been with other chefs, and we've had some delicious recipe. Well, today is part 2 with the Soaring Eagle's chef, Betty Garrett. Venison root vegetable pasty.
Sounds yummy.
It was awesome. I will tell you this. It was awesome. And she starts telling me about it, all the ingredients. I'm like, okay. And then, I ate it and everything like that, and I will tell you, it is awesome. All the recipes are online, plus you can see past episodes of all the recipes at the Soaring Eagle at q1buckpole.com.
Well, don't give the secret away, my friend, because we got to go to part 3 before you eat it.
All right. I'm ready to go. Off to Soaring Eagle.
Okay, looks like our venison's pretty well seared, so we're going to go on to the next step.
Okay, what's our next step?
Our next step is going to be to add our beef stock.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
so
is this just beef stock you get out of the store, or
you can
something
do
that you custom made?
You can do. We use we make our own beef stock here, but you can get any store carries. Most grocery stores carry some kind of beef stock or beef base, and you add that and make it as strong as you like it.
Okay, what are you going to add now?
This is our Worcestershire, granulated garlic. Our dried thyme, and 1 bay leaf. So at this point, this is going to simmer. Basically what we're trying to do is allow this to simmer until that venison is tender. Once this venison is tender, what we're going to do is we're going to put our root vegetables back in. That's going to help add to the flavor. Those are pretty well cooked though, so we don't want to add those now because then they would be overcooked. And then once we remove the bay leaf, we're going to put in our brown roux, which is going to add to the flavor as much as it is the mouthfeel and also thicken it. So in my opinion, the brown roux is one of the more important aspects of this dish. Venison doesn't have a whole lot of fat by itself, so the roux actually introduces some of that and also a richness to it.
All right, so we're continuing to shift things around here. Now it's time for the mushrooms. We're going to move this out of the way for just a second before we add that. And what do we got here going with the mushrooms?
We're going to make marsala mushrooms.
Okay.
Morel mushrooms. So basically, we're going to take celery, onions, and our morel mushrooms, all diced, and we're going to cook those together with the marsala reduction.
Okay. All right. So we're going to cut those up.
Yep. We're just going to dice these up like a couple of cups.
Okay. That makes it easy when you get a real sharp knife. I know that.
Yes, it does. That's very helpful.
Because they got a little rubberiness to them, or
they can.
So.
Yes. Yep. And I'm not looking for a really fine cut on this. I kind of like the bigger chunks with this dish.
And that's all preference, right? I mean, it could be bigger chunks, it could be smaller chunks.
Absolutely.
Whatever you want to do out there.
You could even leave them whole if you had them
okay.
small enough, and if that's what you preferred. Okay, need a couple cups of these. All right, so that's about good for that.
All right, so the mushrooms are all chopped up.
Mushrooms are chopped. Take a look at this. A start.
Gotta start with butter.
We're gonna start with butter again. You could use vegetable oil or something.
No,
canola oil
butter.
if you wanted to, but I
Let's
I
not
love
be
butter.
healthy with this recipe.
Absolutely. My mom loved butter, so what are you gonna do? We're gonna melt our butter.
Okay, so we got the butter melting right now.
Yep, butter's melted. Ready for our vegetables.
Okay.
So we're gonna add our celery and our onions and a little salt and pepper. Just want to coat those, and then these are actually gonna cook in here until they are caramelized, which means they're gonna have a nice brown color. It's gonna take a little longer, but that is gonna add a nice sweet flavor to those. So I'm going to turn it down just a little bit, and those are basically going to cook until
when you
they're
got
caramelized.
onions and celery like that, it just doesn't sound like it's going to be something that's sweet.
When you cook, especially an onion, you can cook an onion to where it almost tastes, it has a lot of natural sweetness in it. So if you cook it to the point where it is, where it's brown, you get a nice caramely rich sweetness. Much different flavor than a raw onion or even just a sauteed onion.
And this will take, what, 10 to 15 minutes or a little longer?
This could take a little longer. It just depends on how much moisture there is in the onion itself and the celery itself, depending on, you know, the particular vegetable and how high your heat is. So I'm just going to let those sit there and cook until they're nice and brown. Okay, our stew is back up to a simmer. What we're going to do now is add our roux. And like I said, this is going to add flavor, mouthfeel, and it's also going to thicken it.
And again, you want to mix this up really well, don't you?
Yeah, you want to continually stir this so you don't end up with little clumps, which would be the equivalent of a little brown dumpling, which nobody wants in their pasties. So.
Well, Betty, it looks like things are starting to come together.
Absolutely. Yep, our venison stew has been thickened with the roux. So this is pretty well set aside and cool for now.
Okay.
All right. We're just going to let that cool so that way when we assemble our pasty, we're not working with a hot stew. Our onions and celery are caramelized. See, they're nice and soft and brown. So at this point, I'm going to add my entire bottle of marsala. You don't have to use an entire bottle if you don't like to. I like the flavor of it.
Well, I will tell you, it gives it a good, smell right off the bat as you pour it in.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to add a bit of dried thyme. Once that comes up to a simmer, we'll add our mushrooms to it. Okay, now that we've come back up to a simmer, I am going to add the morel mushrooms. And this is all going to cook together until this is almost dry. That marsala is going to reduce.
So the whole pan is going to become kind of dry, is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely, yep. Yep, this is all going to reduce. All those flavors are going to mix together and it'll form a sauce with the morels. We're just going to reduce this until it's almost dry, or this also is a matter of preference too. The more you reduce the marsala, the bolder that flavor is going to get, but then the less sauce you'll have. So it just depends on your preference.
Great recipes as always from the Soaring Eagle chefs, and again, you can find them all online. And you know what, Mike? We're going to be there March 2nd, the final prize party.
And I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot of food, too, in addition to prizes.
Exactly right. So make sure you put it on your calendar. Get your hotel room booked now. More after this. Well, we are ready for more stories here on the Q1 Buck Poll. But before that, Big Buck Hoffner, as always, has some featured bucks from around the state.
Let's start out with Maverick Steffies from Big Rapids, Michigan, with a 9-pointer, the score 40 1/4. Pamela Knapp from Brunson, Michigan, brings in a 9-pointer, the score was 40. And Nathan Jones from Battle Creek, 9-pointer, scores 39 3/4.
And you know, Mike, this year was kind of an unusual year. The southern lower part of Michigan, kind of the areas that we were in, less numbers, but really bigger bucks this year.
And, you know, bigger bucks, but you know, I talked to a lot of hunters, and one of the things that was really interesting is the amount of hunters that decided to say, I'm not going to go hunting this year. The HD scared them a little bit away, but those that went out, gutted it out, brought in some nice bucks.
All right, more stories from Miller's Timeout in Battle Creek.
Glenn shot a 12-pointer, 17 3/4 inch spread, 10.375 inches of mass, 9 1/4 inch longest tine. Total score 49.375. A shotgun from Kalamazoo. Glenn, let's hear about the hunt.
All right, I have a nephew that's sitting in the corner. Mike, raise your hand. He took the day off work, called me up, and I said I could get out of work about 1 o'clock. So we went out and went pushing, and we didn't see anything all season. It was really bad. He took one side of the thicket, I took the other side of the thicket, and he was laying down behind a little brush pile, jumped him up, shot twice as he was going through the thicket. He was running to him, which he's standing in an open cornfield. The buck laid back down. He came back, walking back down the cornfield, jumped the buck up. The buck come running through the thicket at me, so I shot 5 more times at him through the thicket. Shot 3 trees.
Another good customer, Randy.
Shot 3 trees. I seen hair fly off his back. He fell down to his backside and took off. And I called my other buddy, Tony, who we all hunt together. And I said, hey, I knocked the big one down. I need some help tracking him. So he came out with his gun, or without a gun. He takes my nephew's gun, and we found the deer laying in the middle, or he was not dead yet, but he was in the middle of the thicket. So we surrounded the thicket. I came back from the road, walked into the thicket. He's standing up on the hill looking at me like nothing's wrong. Would not run, nothing. Well, I shot twice. He ran to the cornfield. I'm not fast. I beat the deer to the cornfield. When I get to the cornfield, he's standing there looking at me. I shoot my last shot, and now I'm out of shells. Sorry, Randy, I didn't come over there and get shells too soon. So I shot 10 times at him.
And has the deer been hit at this point in time?
He ended up being shot 3 times. Took both back hips out, took the back leg out, and the back thigh out. So he was not going anywhere.
Great stories, and as I said earlier in the show, it's always fun to meet the hunters. Coming up, we've got all kinds of prizes we're giving away, including this Wolf 50 caliber rifle from CVA. We've got Dart and Terminator crossbows, and then the final prize that we're going to be giving away coming up, and that is the ATV March 2nd at the Soaring Eagle. If you are entered into the contest, make sure you're there at the Soaring Eagle because you can't win unless you're present.
Yeah, we had a tremendous turnout, and I'll tell you what, the culmination of all the prizes leading up to that ATV and the excitement is unbelievable when we announced that winner.
Well, and we have a lot of prizes that we're giving away to guests. So, hunters, bring your friends, your families. We're going to have all kinds of events and activities going on. We've got raffles happening, so it's going to be a great time. And of course, the Soaring Eagle is going to provide some great food. And that's going to do it for today's show, though, Big Buck. So we've got to go. For Mike Big Buck Hoffner, I'm Tim Hart. Thanks for being with us this week on the Q1 Buck Poll. Remember, anytime you're out in the woods, be safe. I was going to have you say, yep, Tim, it's been great meeting all the people at the stores and seeing the big bucks. And then that leads you right into, and speaking of big bucks, Tim.
I was trying to read your mind because I thought you forgot it.
No. And speaking of big bucks, Tim, I'll tell you what.
Okay, well, I thought you forgot me.
No, so. I didn't forget you. I was just leaving it open for you. Hang on.
Can
I ask you something?
Yeah.
First timer?
No.